The first 4 licks in this video will be based around this positional A harmonic minor scale. You probably noticed that the scale itself isn't made up of an even number of notes per string, so it's up to the melodic figures that we play to make it adhere to the octave system. The first of these evens licks is going to use 4 notes on the high E string and 2 notes on the B string, then another 4 notes on the B string and 2 notes on the G string. Do some free time repeats of this drill for maybe a minute or so, and if everything is set up correctly with your picking orientation, it won't feel like much of a challenge to begin each new string after the last upstroke of the previous string. Now let's create a steady picking line from the E string to the G string, and this drill is one of the first ones we'll be using in the guided practice range for this module. Interestingly, there are 2 approaches I find myself calling upon when it comes to pick placement from the first string to the 3rd string. I can either shift my picking arm at the point where I go from the B string to the G string, or if I start with a fairly straight wrist along the back when I begin picking on the E string, I can add just a tiny amount of wrist flexion to get to the B string and then a tiny bit more to get to the G string, meaning I can pick the whole thing with a single arm position. Next, we're going to work with the middle to lower strings by picking on the G string, then moving to the D string, and then from the D string to the A string. This will actually be joined with the previous lick for a longer line in just a moment. So we have our first longer octave lick coming up now, which sounds pretty ferocious at speed. Since we're accumulating a longer checklist of things to be on top of now, just take a little moment to make sure that you're adhering to the 𝗍𝗶𝗶 fingerings, using the upward escape picking path, and also have good pick placement from string to string. If you need more help setting up your arm motion or the pick placement along the strings, go back and revise that warm-up drill that isolated just the picking hand at the beginning of this module. If SD wrist picking is your primary motion, just double check that you're not carving out that circle that compromises the tone of your picking when you go from the lower strings to the higher strings. Okay, so using the G string as the meeting point for the last 2 licks, here's how the combination sounds. This lick sounds awesome over an E dominant chord for that Phrygian dominant sound in the key of A minor. And since the lick also starts on E, that's a good reference point for matching the chord and the lick. As much as Yngwie loves his A minor, he also plays a lot in B minor, D minor, and E minor. So I'm going to move that last example around to the 5th degree of each of those keys. Time to run a guided practice session now, so join me for that and just keep an eye out for the keys because we will be venturing out of A minor and into some of those other keys I just mentioned.